Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Please check out the KCC Discord linked in the description down below. There you can talk to me and a whole bunch of KCC fans who hang out there on a regular basis. I look forward to seeing you there. Our first story today comes to us from Gerberan. Months of paid vacation? I'll take it. Let's jump right in. This happened in Germany, so the laws are different to other countries, especially to the USA. I was working for a family-owned business, about 40 employees, a couple years ago. My time there wasn't the best because I had huge problems with my boss's younger brother. He was on early pension and officially just working on a small part-time contract, while in reality working full-time, with getting most of his salary out of pocket. That I was hired meant for him that he just worked about half the hours he worked before, and having a huge pay cut because of me pissed him off, as you can imagine. He talked bad about me behind my back all the time and tried to get me fired. Dealing with him was a pain in the butt, but I didn't have to deal with him too often. My coworkers were nice and the pay was good, so I didn't care about finding another job, despite my relationship with my boss and his wife getting worse over time too. My boss even came to me with 2 deliveries to customers because his brother probably told him I would waste time during the deliveries. One day I had to do a delivery with my boss's wife's car because the company car I normally use was at the inspection that day, and the timing couldn't have been worse. I scratched the fender of her car on a wall when I tried to get out of the parking spot. The scratch was barely noticeable, but I immediately reported it to one of my coworkers, so no one can say that I tried to put it under the rug. I did the delivery, and when I came back, my boss's wife already waited for me. She went completely crazy, screamed at me for ruining her car without inspecting the damages before, and said that she will take the money for the repair from my paycheck. I told her that I won't pay for anything because the insurance will pay for it anyway, and that's what made her snap, and she slapped me in the face. I immediately turned around, grabbed my stuff, clocked out, and went to the doctor to get a sick note because of mental stress, which I threw into the company's mailbox in the evening. 2 days later, I got a termination letter in the mail and had to laugh while reading just the first sentence. We are terminating your work contract immediately, or if this isn't applicable, within the legal 30 days. To people who aren't familiar with German workers' law, it's illegal to terminate a contract immediately and within the legal period of time in the same termination letter. You can do one or another, but not both at the same time. So I went to the government office to apply for unemployment and hired a lawyer to sue my boss for illegal termination. Over 2.5 months went by until I got a court date, and my boss was really pissed when the judge explained to him that the termination was illegal and that he had to pay me for the last 2.5 months. But the illegal termination wasn't the only mistake he made. The judge gave me 2 options. I can accept an immediate termination on that day and leave without compensation, or I can have a 2-month salary compensation, but I have to work another month for the company. My boss laughed and said that I'm scared to go back to work and that it makes him happy that I leave the court unemployed. He didn't look that happy anymore when I asked him, "Why should I be scared? Do you want to beat me like your wife did?" So I took option B and went to work the next morning. My boss's brother already waited for me to hand me the termination letter and made comments about how difficult the next 30 days would be for me. I checked the termination letter, and after I've seen that everything was right, I just said that I'm not feeling well, turned around and went to my doctor to get another 30-day sick note because of burnout. So at the end, I had a 3.5 months vacation with full pay, 2-month salary compensation, and he had to pay for my lawyer too because he lost at court. I could have sued my boss's wife for the slap too, but that would have been too much stress for maybe a couple €100. I feel like OP missed a big opportunity here. I think I probably would have filed for assault charges and then done the illegal termination, and then include the police report for the assault charge in the complaint for the termination. It's a hostile work environment. You're gonna get paid out, buddy. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Goth Angel Blood. Want me to make my quota? Hope you like cross-dressers. Now before we jump right in, I'd like to personally dedicate this story to Gordon, who commented this incredibly bigoted comment on the last video that mentioned LGBTQ. Screw you, Gordon. And with that out of the way, let's jump right in. Posted once before about a situation when I was teaching, but thought I would go back to one of the original acts of malicious compliance that happened while I was working my way through grad school. Once upon a time, in order to make ends meet during uni, I took a job working at a bridal shop. This shop involved mostly walk-ins who would buy dresses directly off the rack. If you're from the States, you probably know the one I'm talking about. When I took the job, it was explained to me that the majority of my salary was commission-based. That didn't bother me because even the base pay was decent at the time. Besides, the lowest financial band to qualify for commission required me to sell 10 dresses a week. Easy. During my initial interview, I explained to my manager that I would need to get off work at 3 p.m. on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays to attend all my classes. Now, if you've ever worked a retail job at all, you know that the daytime hours, Monday through Thursday, as well as those evening hours, tend to be very low volume. The majority of all sales are made Friday through Sunday, with the casual shoppers coming in on Saturday and the serious shoppers coming in on Sunday. Therefore, my manager had no problem with my needing those nights off every week. My schedule was set as Wednesday, Thursday, Friday during the day, as well as all day Saturday and Sunday. However, within 2 weeks of being there, it became apparent that one of the older women I worked with did have a problem with my schedule. She disliked working the weekday evenings and days because those hours didn't typically result in sales. Instead, most of our time was spent cleaning and restocking inventory. At first, it started as a few nasty comments here and there on the floor. Then, she started borrowing items from my bridal drawer. Belly bumps, pins, hair ties, tissues, cough drops. Eventually, she started telling the hostess to remove my name from the incoming bride inventory, claiming I was busy with another client when I was not. The final straw came when she had to work one of my daytime shifts. I was studying for an exam, and one of my high-dollar brides came in. Instead of ringing the sale through with my name as the consultant as per policy, the computer automatically registers who is the consultant. She removed my name and put her name as the consultant instead. That one sale was over $200 in commission. I was livid. Of course, I brought it up to my manager, and that did not go as planned. Because the other consultant had more seniority than I did, my manager flipped the tables on me and claimed that maybe if I pulled my weight and pushed through more in sales, I wouldn't be in this position. Apparently, my refusal to take evening shifts during the week was upsetting to other consultants because they had to work those low volume hours. WTF, I was working all the daytime shifts. Manager started badgering me that I needed to find a way to pull in more business for the bridal shop and close more sales, or she would demote me to a stockroom employee. Okay, want me to bring in more business? Game on. Now, I knew from previous interactions in the shop that both my manager and this consultant took a moral issue with anyone associated with the Alphabet Mafia, LGBTQ+. For instance, we had a lesbian couple come in once looking for 2 wedding gowns, and the manager made them so uncomfortable with her religious talk that both brides left. Another time, the consultant had refused to dress a male in a prom gown because it was an atrocity and disgusted her. I, however, didn't give a darn what you were doing with your merchandise after you purchased it, and I had a lot of friends in the Alphabet Mafia. I immediately called one of my good friends who was a well-known local drag queen and asked him if he knew anyone in need of a special occasion gown. I offered special consultations, complete with bra fittings, during the daytime hours I worked. The first day, 3 drag queens showed up. The next, it was 4. Saturday involved 5 drag queens, 3 lesbian brides, and a few flamboyantly gay men there for support. It may have gotten out of hand on Sunday when a whole van of drag queens drove in from over an hour away just to see me and start a ruckus with the religious nuts in the store. I had to take half of the salons to dress them, and I made a huge amount in commissions that week. The next week, a good number of my clientele continued to come into the shop, always insisting on me and demanding I be listed as their consultant. The manager was ticked and the other consultant was disgusted, but what could they really do? All my manager asked me to do was increase my sales, which I had done in spades. I ultimately left just a few weeks later, which was planned as I had graduated and taken a professorship at a state school some hours away. But I did learn from the assistant manager at the store that the Alphabet Mafia continued to flamboyantly frequent that store for their bridal and formal wear needs until it ultimately closed down 6 months later. Remember to tip your waitresses and don't ever piss off the drag queens. When you're in business, you shouldn't be caring who somebody loves. You shouldn't be caring what color they are either. It's only a question to you of, if their credit is clean and the cash is green, we can do business. Gotta be honest, OP's boss sounds like a bit of a moron though, because the drag queens are gonna spend a lot of money on formal wear because they do wear it on a regular basis. This next story comes to us from Lord of the Memes 18. Each person has their own job, if you say so. Let's jump right in. So a few days ago, me and two of the people I work with were replacing nozzles and hoses on one of the pivots on the farm we work on. For privacy purposes, we'll call one person Johnny and the other Mike. I'll be Horatio. Anyway, what ended up happening was that Johnny would get up top on the ladder to put the hose in. Mike would hand him the hose and cut the hose when it was ready and drove the four-wheeler that had all the stuff. I was crimping the hoses and putting the nozzles in. Now, it was a windy day, which meant from time to time, I would have to hold the ladder for Johnny just to try and keep it stable. But that meant that the crimping and nozzles weren't being put in. At first, Mike would crimp them, and then I would go through and add the nozzles, and once I caught up, I would start crimping again. But after a while, Mike stopped crimping while I was holding the ladder, so I started to fall behind. This went on for most of the pivot, but it reached a point where Johnny took a water break with his dog and asked me to hold the ladder up, as it was windy and we didn't want to put it back up again. So Johnny is taking his deserved break. I'm holding the ladder, and Mike, well, he was just sitting on the four-wheeler on his phone. Turns out there were 3 hoses behind us that needed crimped, and a nozzle added to them. I would do them while I was waiting, but I was holding the ladder. So I asked Mike if he would please at least crimp those while we're waiting. His response, sure, but you'll drive the four-wheeler and do the hose and get it up there. Basically just saying we would switch jobs, which I didn't want to do. So I was just like, whatever, and went back to holding the ladder. I'm glad I just let it go then, because about an hour later, while Mike was getting Johnny some things he needed, one of his boxes on the four-wheeler fell off and spilled all the little parts everywhere. So Mike starts gathering them up, and I'm watching as I'm holding the ladder. The timing was perfect, because Johnny was ready to move on and start the next one. But Mike was occupied and couldn't drive the four-wheeler up. So naturally he asks me, Horatio, would you please drive the four-wheeler up and start that? You can probably see where this is going. Oh, but I can't, Mike. That's part of your job. Besides, I gotta hold the ladder in this wind, so I'm busy anyway. Mike did seem like the message got through to him, and it did. He seemed to regret asking me and also regret what he said. I did end up moving the four-wheeler forward, but just because I was ready to get done. I let Mike do the rest though, and went back to crimping and putting the nozzles on. I say the message got through because towards the end of the pivot, he did crimp them instead of leave them. But oh, it felt so good to throw that back at him, because it's not exactly the first time he's just lazed around like that and left things to others. Hopefully this will help with future situations, but I'm not holding my breath. Well, OP, it sounds to me like you were getting hosed by this guy, so you just put a crimp into his request. Completely reasonable. This next story comes to us from Wade Wilson Watts. Your only job is to help customers. Let's jump right in. Years ago, I worked at an office supply store. We had idiot manager after idiot manager cycle through and come up with dumb ideas to try and make the store run better. And this is one of those dumb ideas. The idea was that between certain hours, I think 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., we were only allowed to directly help customers. No restocking shelves, no unloading the trucks. I was in charge of changing and checking prices, but wasn't allowed during those hours. Any of those tasks can easily be done while still being accessible to customers, but apparently that's not good enough. The rest of the staff decided to sneakily do their work when the manager wasn't looking, otherwise they couldn't get everything done. Luckily, I was able to finish my work outside of these hours, so I decided to follow this ridiculous rule. At first, I stood up front and turned myself into our Walmart-style greeter, but I hated it and didn't really feel that it was following the rule, as customers typically don't like being asked questions the second they walk in the door. Eventually, I found a spot in the back of the store where I can see the front door and I post myself there. I do absolutely nothing besides stand there and stare at the front door. When a customer comes in, I track them with my eyes, see what aisle they walk down, and go ask if they need help. When I finish helping them, or more often after they say they don't need anything, I walk back to my spot in the back of the store and continue staring at the front door. Sometimes I stand there for less than a minute, but sometimes I just stand there for 15 minutes or more. I do this for 3 hours a day, 4 days of the week that I'm there, for I don't even know how many weeks. One of my favorite memories of this time was a staring contest with my manager. I was in my spot in the back of the store, and he was near the front of the store when he spotted me standing there, not even remotely pretending to work. He stares at me across the store, and I stare right back, hoping he'll confront me. After all, I'm not allowed to do anything besides help customers, and I know I've approached every customer in the store. Unfortunately, he didn't, and I lost the staring contest after a few minutes when a customer came in and I had to go approach them. When I got back to my spot, he had already moved on. Eventually, I quit. I was given my final warning for my attitude. No customer complaints or problems with incorrect prices. I was just rude to the managers. If you don't know, final warning means next time I did something wrong, I would be fired. And I realized my managers weren't going to get smarter, and I wasn't going to learn to bite my tongue. So it was best that I move on. Of course, they didn't realize how good at my job I was, and my replacement was terrible, partially because they didn't have me train him before I left. Price tags all over the store were wrong for months. You know, the last thing a manager wants to hear is that their idea isn't absolutely wonderful. OP, if I were you, I would have stayed in that spot at the back of the store and continued the staring contest with the manager just because I could. Somebody else could deal with the customer that came in the door. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.